producing properties. I don't want bank owned or anything, I just don't want a regular sale, not a short sale or anything. And let's just look for duplexes or triplexes. We'll just do any of these. And let's search, I like to search them by the map. I'll just click the map. I'm not gonna do price point or anything, I'm just gonna pull in, let's see, the address here, something like that. So we'll just find something around here in Tampa. See if there's anything for sale. So let's see if anything's a good deal. Alright, so let's take a look at this. Somebody's asking $365,000 off Floor, Nebraska, which if you know this area, it's like, maybe slightly sketch. Total is 2 units. It's been on the market 25 days. They're asking $365,000. It's built in 1941. 2-story. Investor's dream. Okay, so it's a duplex, top and bottom unit. A little hard to tell, but it's probably this is probably the door for the bottom unit. This is probably a second, like a stairway up to the top unit. So wood frame, more likely to deal with termites. I'm just assuming this is wood frame. This kind of looks like, with the siding and stuff. It should say on here.
Scroll down, look like one exterior.
But it's somewhere on here. It'll say.
Scroll down a little bit.
Yeah. So exterior construction, they thought, I don't know why, but it's probably wood frame, slab, so there's no crawl space. But basically, I'm gonna start running the numbers on this. So they're telling you that they're getting expected rent of 16. So bottom unit is occupied, it has a lease until April for 1,600. Roof is 5 years old. Copper, plumbing, and galvanized with PVC drain lines. Plumbing is gonna be something that you take a good look at. It's always worth spending a few $100s to camera the lines, so you just have a plumber camera the lines and record it. Cast iron, all that stuff is gonna fail at some point, so you just wanna analyze like offsetting the price of it, or just putting that in the budget, right? So we have some basic information on roof, the top unit's vacant, so they're saying you're gonna get $1,600 a month, $3,200 total, times 12, that your gross return is $38,000. If you just divide that simply into what they're asking in the price, that's 10% return, but you haven't factored in your mortgage or anything, so it's probably not going to be a deal. But I'll run through just some scenarios for you. So let's say this is all true. All right, you can get $3,200 a month. Let's say your property manager is 10%, 8 to 10%, but just say 10%. Your maintenance, right? You're going to have ongoing maintenance throughout the year. Doesn't matter if you buy a brand new property, there's going to be something going on. So if you, on an older property, you may want to go higher than 10%. Let's just say 10% for maintenance on an annual basis, not counting something major like a roof. So just general maintenance. Toilets leaking, that small crap. It's kind of that 10% is what if it's a roof, new water heater, that's what we would call capital expenditure or CapEx. There's like 2 buckets. Is it general, like more like a general maintenance thing, or is this like, every 5 years, something we got to do. So there's kind of 2 budgets. So if you bought this and the roof is 5 years old, cool. Probably don't, you want to verify that, but maybe we don't have to do the roof. We don't know if the electrical has ever been updated. So, but you would find that out through an inspection, or the plumbing, or the AC units. So here, it kind of looks like it's window, like maybe it's all window units. Those are only going to last a few years or something like that. So. So let's just say 10% for maintenance, 10% for management.
10% of the rent?
The rent, yeah, total rent collected. And then 5% for vacancy. So nobody's gonna be 100% occupied forever into perpetuity. So we're just gonna say over time, we're gonna have 5% vacancy over here. So right there, you got 25% expenses on the property without even talking about the mortgage yet. So if we're looking at $38,000 a year, and we take 25% off, or just multiply by, I'm not a math whiz, but by 75. We haven't even factored in the mortgage yet, and now we're down to a return of, based on their price, of 8%. We're going to talk about mortgage, taxes, insurance, right? So it's like, so if you bought it cash, then yeah, potentially you have an 8% return. But to deal with the maintenance, to deal with the tenants, like, should you just put it at the bank for 5? Like, is it really worth buying the property for an extra potential 3% return? Now you do have tax benefits here that you wouldn't experience in like a stock market, but it's like, man, like it's crazy, right? So
what's the rule of thumb? What's a good number?
So a more risky area, so if you're factoring in, all the expenses and everything, you know, your sort of like prime properties are gonna be what they call a cap rate of like 5%. But if you're in like a lower income area, maybe it's like up to 8% cap rate. So most people are gonna use leverage, you know, when they're taking a look at it. There's a couple different things that somebody would be interested in knowing, like if you're getting a loan, I don't wanna get like too complex, but there's something that's called cash on cash, which is essentially if you get a loan and you're putting 25% down, what's your return on that 25%? They call it your cash on cash return. If you don't have to put very much into the property and you can like make a decent amount, like, you know, I used a VA loan on my first house. I moved out and now I rent it out. So like basically no money in it, no down payment. So like any return is basically like a huge return because I didn't put anything down. So, but cash on cash is an easy way to say, what's my return on that 25% I put down? Because that might be different than the total return on the property. But it just depends. But here, it's like if you're running into, you know, mortgage on this thing, you could use a mortgage calculator or whatever. But you know, if you're gonna, you know, insurance on this thing, you say it's like $2,000 a year, and everything else. I mean, your return is like 3%, 4% or something. It's not gonna be super great on this. So the offer just needs to come down. But if we're looking at this seriously, okay, you know, just based on the photos, I'll run some rent comps real quick for you. But it's like, okay, like this structure looks a little suspicious, right? This like second floor thing. You have window units, which, you know, based on what I know about the area, these are probably $1,200 rentals. Like you're not getting 16.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get
I have something for rents nearby that's like I might get 13, and it's way nicer than this. So, but just looking through the photos, okay, it's got window units. That's not as desirable as central AC or mini splits, right? So maybe you want to upgrade it, but you know, if you keep it the same, you know, paint doesn't look too bad. It needs a little curb appeal help, maybe, you know, whatever. So you're just kind of analyzing, like, if I'm going to come in and want to raise the rents, I need to put some money in to curb appeal, right? Take the satellite dish off, repaint this. Maybe you repaint the building if it really needs it. Doors look all busted, right? So like, yeah, the door functions properly, but it's all these dents in it. Like when a renter pulls up and they see this, you're like, ugh. So that's when you gotta like put money into like new stickers. Like these are like stickers are falling off, so maybe you want to. Like, these are the smallest things that make a big impact. New mailbox, new door numbers. Like a door's not gonna be cheap, but like at least repainting it, right? Fresh coat of red. They got the lockbox open. Like this looks like terrible, right? Basic stuff, right? Like the flooring, look at like they stained it and it looks bad, so just repaint it, I guess. You know, at a minimum, should have repainted that before you try to put it on the market. You got the gold handles. Nothing says outdated like handles. That's small. Make sure all the doorknobs match the same color, right? Like we're talking about very low investment. But if you have one gold one and one silver one, like people notice that stuff and they just assume that you don't care about the rest of it. So outdated, which is fine. You know, if you're like, hey, I don't want to do much with this property, then cool. You might only get $1,100. We're totally fine. You don't want to put money into it. But this is a pretty small kitchen. You could renovate this for a really low cost. A couple upper cabinets, new countertops. It's got that coil, you know, pay $300 for another stove or something, $400 for a new stove. But this might also like kind of be okay for the area, right? Like maybe you still want to raise the rent, but this is also maybe not totally out of question what people will pay for this area. But I can just tell you, it's just going to be reflected in taking longer to find somebody than it would be to spend the, to spend the $7,000, $10,000 and update the unit. But if I'm looking in here and I'm going to come in here and get 16, I'm going to have to do everything. You're going to have to put in a new kitchen, at least black, maybe stainless appliances. Carpet's not going to be a no-go. Window units you might just kind of get stuck with because it could be more pricey to put in a mini split. And maybe it's $2,500 for a mini split, assuming some of the stuff's actually there. Tile, you could keep the tile if it's in good shape and just have it redone, reglazed white, right? So maybe you save some money there, or you just want to do a whole new toilet, refinish the tub, new vanity, But earlier they're talking about $55 a square foot for a flip. Maybe you don't need that here, but maybe you still need, you're gonna have to do flooring. Flooring's maybe $4 all in if you're like labor and material and the padding and whatever, like $4 a square foot. Maybe you're gonna budget for some new window units. And that looks like it's probably only one unit, right? So you're probably gonna get an idea, but if we assume that the bottom unit looks the same as this, let's say that a whole square footage of this place is heated square footage 1,700. So even if we use more of a rental idea, like 1,700 square foot times, instead of 55 square feet, maybe we're only gonna do rental, we're not going crazy, but let's do $25 a square foot. This could be just conservative, right? Conservative sort of like, okay, if I go in here and I wanna do fully remodel both units, plus some other stuff, like maybe I'm at a budget like this. Maybe you can get it done for less, but you're just, the more you can negotiate, the better. So you're just thinking of like, okay, this guy wants 365, like based on the return, like this is probably really something that should be priced under 300. Like if they're really gonna get 1,600, no one's gonna really pay for this. So that's how you're kind of, checking just what, that exercise of the photos is just to analyze, all right, well, like if we're gonna get top tier rent, we're gonna have to raise, rent some, invest some money. So then let's see, okay, like maybe the value is actually okay, but let's double check the rents. So, well, we're gonna go in and just pull rental comps. We're gonna pull active comps. Active doesn't really tell you much other than what your competition's doing. It's not what people are actually paying. Pending is most likely what people are paying, but lease is actually gonna show us what people have rented and moved in. And we're gonna look for either a side of a duplex or an apartment. And let's just do just any 2-bedroom. And that was on Florida Basket. I took out the address, but I know it wasn't super far from the office, right? It was like somewhere over here. So, this is a tricky area though, because you have like Ybor, you have Tampa Heights, which is completely different. So crossing this little road would be a major thing, right? I think the other property, I think was on the left side, I don't remember. But if you're in here, you can't pull comps from over here because you're in a different market. So, but let's just look. Okay, we got a 2-1. Somebody got for 1,250. So let's see, because these other people said we could get 1,600, and this isn't super far. So let's look at the photos, try to get a rough idea of like what we're even looking at for the property itself. Damn, look at this freaking remodel kitchen. And now, I didn't look at the square footage of the other units, but if it's 1,500, then maybe you assume it's 700, 750 a square foot for each of those units on the old property. So here somebody got a 2-1. It's also a duplex. Yeah, maybe the rent includes water and stuff like that. That's not a big difference. Maybe that's $50 difference. So yeah, maybe they're paying. Well, that's actually included here. The other property may not. But these are 744 square foot unit. It still took almost 60 days, and it's $350 cheaper for a remodeled 2-bedroom. So where are you seeing the 16, right?
Yeah.
So that's where you're taking a look at. But let's just pull another one. Let's pull this one that was a little bit higher.
What's the green mean? Is that active?
Green is active. Sorry. So red is what people have actually paid. So that's all that's all you really should care about for the most part, unless there's not a lot or you want to know what your competition is doing. But here we got 2-bedroom, 1-bath, big 2-bedroom apartment. Took 29 days. CDOM is complete days on market, so maybe they had to make some repairs when they had it listed. Maybe something happened, they had to take it off the market, relist it. So this is the really what you're going to go off is. Okay, maybe it took a month to find something, and they got $1,500. So to me, the curb appeal obviously looks like better than the one we're looking at. Color's a little weird, but you got granite. They even have the above stove like vent, which is unusual for rental. But look, it's updated vanity, somewhat updated floors, and these people, they got 15, but you're almost talking 50% larger unit, right?
Better location.
Appliances include washer and dryer. Yeah, better location, whatever, so it's like, right there, okay, I'm underwriting at like $1,200 a month, so maybe it's 24 grand a year. So that needs to be like 200 grand.
Yeah.
If we're gonna put 40 G's into it, it's gonna probably be like 200. Or maybe it's worth, realistically, if you're getting 12, 13, 14, 15, like yeah, maybe you can get as high as 300 grand for it. But it's like, is it even gonna compound?
Well, that's putting nothing in there too, though.
Yeah, and so the other thing would be, if we're saying, okay, maybe even the rents check out, yeah, you're gonna get 1,600. The last thing you're gonna do is just run, you're gonna run sold comps.
But
So let's see
Jim,
what.
quick question. So even if it says like 1,500, do you think it is actually leased for 1,500 or maybe less than that? Do we?
You can have a pretty good. It's gonna be most likely accurate.
Most likely.
Like there's probably not some side deal where they're rented for a different price. Because the realtor is usually they're gonna simply be required to put in like, based on ethics and stuff, that they put what really happened. Now it could be, I think there was maybe a $500 incentive on one of those or something, but generally that's going to be pretty likely what it actually went for. Pending is where you're like, you don't know, like maybe somebody's paying or close to it, but lease is for sure. So the last thing is running the value based on the rent comps. You're using an income approach. So the value is determined based off the income of the property. But with duplexes too, like you would a house, like what have other duplexes appraised for? So right now we're just saying, okay, like maybe even the rents check out at $1,600 a unit, but what are other people paying for something that's generating a similar return? So I'm gonna pull just pending and sold duplexes. Again, I don't want short sales or anything, but let's just pull duplexes and see if the value, like even if we wanted to pay $365 and we got a loan for it, would the bank even appraise it at that? Like maybe they wouldn't. So then you just wasted a bunch of time.
And you're looking at the bank loan for this kind of thing, 'cause you're holding it for a long time, right?
Yeah, hard money lender loans is pretty much something that you're planning to be in and out of 12 months.
Makes sense.
As an easy idea.
Yeah.
Now with that duplex, it looked older, it may not really qualify for financing, so that's also where they may have to take less on the price because only a cash buyer can buy that. If the plumbing's not updated or the roof still seems to be okay, but if the electrical's got really old panels that are an insurance problem, you can't get insurance on it, then they can only have a cash buyer. Then your buyer pool goes to like such a small amount, you have to adjust your price to be able to do that. So here we have, this would be great, a great example. Look, we have one duplex that is sold for $255. I read this analysis on this one a long time ago. It's funny, it's still showing up. So we have a sold duplex for $383. They were asking $365, right? So let's see. This one's 2 units. They listed it for $395. They got $383. The income was about what the other people were looking for, so $36,000, close enough. So, but look, this looks like it's probably new roof, right?
Yeah.
Like windows updated, central AC. So would you pay $365 or would you pay, kitchens are small, right? Like, but it's still nicer than the other one. But so somebody did pay, $383 for this. So if you're like, let's say that duplex, you're like, I want to buy it for a rental rate. But let's say you were going to just flip that duplex. You could say, okay, if we updated everything, it might be worth $365. But based on the condition it's in now, and probably not getting the $1,600, then my offer is going to be way lower, right? So you could use a similar idea, like okay, $383,000 times our 70% we talked about earlier, minus the $42,000 budget. On that duplex, we probably need to offer low 2s if we're gonna just flip it and even just sell it to somebody else that wants to rent it out. But even if we want to hold it, you may be able to offer differently if you're going to hold it. Like you may be willing to pay a little bit more because you're just like, I'm going to hold this long term anyways. But again, like you don't want to overpay. So it's good to see that, hey, if we fix it up, then down here it'll show if it's a cash offer or something. But most likely it's financing on this. So you could say, it'll be somewhere on here. But you can say, okay, well it did finance, so it's likely that it appraised at $383 or something really close to it, where they were able to get the deal done. So at least the value could be maybe as high as $380, but you would have to do a full thing. This looks like block. The other one was full frame, so you're probably not as great a value as this. On that one compared to this one. This is single story. It's still pretty old, 1947, but new roof and all this stuff, so your insurance costs probably a little bit lower. So the total heated square footage is not very different from the one we just looked at. But 2-story wood frame, maybe it's not worth as much, but again, a sold price per square foot of $260. So yeah, the other one with 40 or 50 grand into it, and you're actually getting some people that are paying decent, you might get it. Now this one looks like it might have been sold vacant because there's no actual what they're getting. They kind of say, let's see, unit 1 is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. The other one was only 2 1s, so there's a big difference right there, right? You're getting 2 2s instead of 2 1s. Is leased at $1,550, where the other one's a 2-1 leased at $1,500. So again, $1,600's high, and this is a great looking property, right? So they're way off on that. The other property is basically giving you sort of what could be. Could be worth the $365 that they're asking now, but it needs a ton of work. Rents could be $16, but this one's got a nice 2-bedroom, 2-bath for only $1,550. So you're just kind of take a look. Okay, like these guys are just way out of whack. And these people are promoting 9% cap rate, which would be once you factor in pretty much everything, debt, your mortgage and everything, that you're getting your 9% return, which is a good for rentals. You don't see that a lot, but that's also probably because it's in like not such a super great area. It's kind of like the better properties or the better areas, you're gonna experience a little bit less of a cap rate. But yeah, so that'd be a simple reason of like a simple way that if I'm underwriting, I'm running rental comps, but then I'm also seeing like what are just the values going for duplexes in the area based on what people are actually paying. So that's where you can see like that guy's way off. Why would you pay $365 for that when you could pay $383 for this one, right? Like huge discrepancies. So that's somebody that's just probably hoping for a retarded buyer that they don't really exist. They just think, oh, I'll just hopefully get an offer. But if you back into they're saying the annual net income is 36, which that's probably not exactly, that's probably gross, and then they got listed as net. But anyways, so they're kind of promoting, hey, you're gonna get similar returns to the other one, and the values are supported. But yeah, so maybe even if you paid $300,000 for that other one, and you put in $20,000 and like you're all in for $320 and it's worth $380. Like, I don't know, maybe it's not terrible, but it's like for you as the investor, for the time investment to really get your return, like you're gonna offer a lot less on the other one. Again, this is back in the napkin without doing a formal inspection, but that price per square foot on a rental side where you might do like 20 to 30 a square foot or something could be like get you close enough to maybe what you need to do. Whereas on the flip side, you're probably going to invest more because your goal is really to sell it. Where here, maybe you even do $15. Maybe you do like a cheap flooring that's only $1 or $2 for the cost of the materials and labor on top of that. Like maybe you just go cheaper on the materials because it can be a rental, right? So it depends, but of course when you're making the offer, you want to be more conservative on what you're looking at. So that's a good example of like, how did they even come up with that value at what the current condition is? Who knows? But so you're kind of verifying the rental side, but then you're using a little bit of the income approach of like, what do people that are buying income producing properties, like what are they willing to pay? So you can kind of get an idea of like the comps based on the potential return. So
What's a good cap rate to kind of not go under in Tampa Bay?
I mean, I think most areas like, some of the multifamily deals are like, just selling at like 5%. Dude,
Yeah,
brutal, man.
those are like the big ones though. Like
In the lower income area, you might see 6, 7, 8, or 9. I haven't seen stuff like over 8 really in a long time, but it just depends on a little bit. But yeah, it's like, it seems like somewhere in there is your sort of cap rate that people are going in. Again, you have your tax benefits and some other stuff. You're using leverage, a lot of times with rental properties anyways. So, but yeah, just something to consider. That'd be a simple example on like how we would run just your very basic comp analysis for rentals or sales. So, yeah, hopefully that was helpful.
So, what do you think is the ideal days on market to consider? Like, suppose if I'm going to like Ocala, right? I found an investment property and I'm checking MLS, and so what do you think we should look at? Like, should it be like less than 60 days on market or something?
Oh, for the sale side?
For the
For
sales.
income side?
No, for a rental property. Like if I want to convert it into a single family rental house, I'm checking the leased properties. And I'm
like
checking
how long it took to find a renter?
Yeah.
Is what your question? Yeah, you're probably, well, it depends, but probably you could have a little bit more time on market in some of those further out areas, like that stuff in Bartow. I'm interested to see. We just put the one on the market this week where it's like, you may just have to be offset with the price, but it's generally single family, even apartments, like it's still over 45 days, but it'll really depend on that little area and the pricing and everything. But I think 60 days or less for sure, you should be finding tenants for sure on stuff, or at least people applying on it. So you have some other duplexes here, 353, 450, 383, 400. So it just depends on the breakout, but yeah, you got another 2-story one here. So this might be a little bit, but yeah, new windows and all this stuff, and yeah, it sold for 400, but it's quite a bit bigger, 2,000 square feet. It has a 3-bedroom, 1-bath. Both are 3-bedroom, 1-bath, which is a little unusual. So you can get a lot more rent, but it's like, man, you're only $30,000 more than the old one, and you know your income potential is a lot higher. So yeah, you're just comping it out. You're just taking a look at what's the competition doing, what are they offering, nicely updated apartments compared to the other thing that they were trying to get you to buy. So it looks newer than 1918.
Yeah, right, it does.
But yeah, so yeah, just an idea. You're doing basically the same thing. You're just running comps. So, but that's like stuff that you want to take into account. AC was replaced in 2020. Roof, you know, is the water, sewer, trash separate? What it says water, sewer, trash is currently paid by the owner, meaning that it's mostly likely one water meter. So, you know, you could bill that if the current owner's not, you could bill that back to the tenants, or like I said, do a flat water fee, that sort of thing. A little bit of income potential there. But yeah, both tenants are paying $1,300 a month, and for a 3-1 even, versus the other one was 2-1, thinking we could get 1,600. So, buyer's financing fell through. Appraised, yeah, whatever. So, yep. In a nutshell, that kind of wraps us up. You guys have any questions on the flip stuff or the rentals or?